Hi, Steve.
Hey, Jim.
So, for today's episode, I started going down a rabbit hole, and guess what I found?
What?
Another rabbit hole, and then another one, and then another one.
And on to infinity.
And welcome once again to Two Guys Talking About Records. Each week, we two guys get together and we talk about records, music, records mostly, but it depends how it falls together. My name's Jim, and I am a record store owner.
And I'm Steve, a record collector, and we're hoping we're going to talk about records today. We've had a lot of technical difficulties happening.
We're hoping. I'm not certain what is going on there, but the internet's. You know what? Let's blame that the thing that took down half the internet the other day.
Yes, it must
That's
be.
That's what it is. But I'm on a Mac, and you're on a Mac, so go figure.
Yep.
So this week we are going to talk about niche collections, however you want to pronounce that. Steve mentioned this a week or so ago as a possible subject, and I thought, okay, that's kind of cool. But we collect records, but how many of us realize that there may be sub collections within those collections?
Yeah.
Things that we like to collect that we don't even realize it. So we're going to dig into that. And I got a feeling that I got a stack of stuff here. Holy cow. It's going to be tough to get through.
Yeah, it's going to be Jim with the stack of stuff. We're pretty sure he's a niche collector.
Well, we'll see if we can convince you that you may be somewhat. We'll see.
All right.
But each week, as we like to do, we start off with our recent acquisitions, additions to the collection. It's not slowing down for either of us. I'm a little bit slower this week, but I've tempered it. But you're still going to laugh at me. But what kind of goodies did you get this week?
It was, boy, yeah, the mailman. I guess I'm going to owe them a Christmas card or something. I don't know. It's going to be bad. So I went to a new store. The vinyl. What was it called? Vinyl Valhalla. Vinyl Valhalla.
Ooh.
This is a Talking Heads 1975 demo sessions. So pick that up. Haven't listened to it yet. A little disappointed. The one disappointment here on the store is they don't clean the records.
Oh.
So I bought 2 records, and now I have to go pull out my spin clean to give them both a really good cleaning, which is kind of a annoyance.
You've been spoiled. You have been spoiled.
I've been spoiled, but gee whiz, come on. And I used to have this one, Neil Young's Freedom Rock. He has Rocking in the Free World on this, and it was probably one of my more favorite Neil. I'm not a huge Neil Young fan. I know, big surprise, but this one I really liked because he really came out and tore it up. And that's when he was getting the whole grunge thing going on, So
it was his beginnings of being an angry old man, even back then.
It was. From Fuzz Club, this is a group out of Australia called Orb, not to be confused with Orb, which is more ethereal, more dance beat. This is Psych, and it's actually O.R.B. is how they distinguish themselves, so it doesn't say here on this. Brand new, just came out and selling out pretty fast. But Fuzz Club just has great stuff. Kind of it's very much psych rock, really a lot. Someday we'll do a thing on new psych rock because I don't have a lot of the old, but boy, there's so much good new stuff coming out. Radio Wasteland. I went shopping there,
virtually.
Through jam and texting. Hey, can you get? I picked up. This is from Numero, The Scientists' Weird Love. I like the group The Scientists. Again, I believe out of Australia. This is 80s. Again, kind of psych. And so it falls into that garage rock, psych rock. And I have a few originals. This one, I never had an original. So I don't have all their stuff. Not going to get all their stuff, but this one interested me. So I got that. Another brand new album from a group, a newer group. It's called Shellac. and Jim had to try to find this. This sold out right away. I mean, it came and it went. It's called "To All Trains," more punk rock type
Yep,
stuff.
I was going to say we had that punk collection from way back when had a shellac record in there that it had like a piece of tin that was the cover, and it was really weird. I don't remember if you got in on that one or not, but I did sell it eventually. But
I
it
did
was
not.
shellac. I don't know. That might be the same group.
Okay, it probably is. So yeah, I haven't had a chance to listen to this yet, but I was excited. I had a friend of mine said, "Oh, it's the record of the year." Of course, about every other week he has the record of the year. So I keep telling him that says everything's the record of the year with you. But I gave it a try, and there we go. Chris Rea, "Road to Hell," an album. There's one song on here I really like, and I bought the album. But there is some other stuff on here, and this is not a bad album. Did I really need it? No, but it wasn't. It wasn't expensive, so okay, I did it anyway. And then finally, and Jim, there is more, but this is all I'm showing today. Orchestratal Maneuvers in the Dark. This is from '81. I showed, they have one of their albums that I really like, and I showed that. I says, this is all I need, and then I got the comments poured in. Well, you gotta listen to the early stuff, and it is true. A lot of these new wave bands, you listen to the earlier stuff, they're more experimental. There's more to them. A little bit of the punk, a little bit of the different new wave happening, and it's a case with this. Yeah, it's electronic, but a little darker, and this was pretty good. I just listened to side one, gotta do side two, but
Well, even with something like OMD, I mean, they almost melded into that new wave, but on the top 40 side of things.
Yeah,
That's
very
what
much.
most folks know from like the Breakfast Club and that era. But yeah, you're right. So many of those groups did have a darker beginning, so to speak.
Yeah. And that, so that was fun. It said on there, it's a press from the Netherlands, and obviously that must make it great because, well, they wear like wooden shoes and stuff. So
yeah, you can hear them clicking around in the studio.
That's right. Well, what about you, Jim?
I light week. It's nothing tremendous, but this one I was kind of holding off opening up a store copy, the the review copy, but I finally did yesterday, and I'm not sorry that I did. This is the brand new Billy Strings album. It's called Live Volume 1, and it is not so much a concert from Billy Strings. It's actually kind of cool here. Not so much a concert as it is a compilation of different live performances, and it even comes on this really cool, beautiful dark blue vinyl on here. And I think we've talked before about how I'm really starting to get into Billy Strings, and Home is just such a fantastic album, and that's represented well on this with Dust in a Baggie and Away from the Mire, lots of other stuff on here, Tinfoil and Turmoil, and it's a jam album, and yeah, it's a double LP, but some of these songs go 13 minutes, and you can just tell that they're just loving the live side of this thing. And like I said, for me to get a live album, and I know we did a whole episode on live albums, it's got to be just kind of the right kind.
Yeah.
And I'd said, okay, if this, we had multiple copies, a lot sold. And I said, okay, if this makes it till, midday Saturday, and I still have a couple copies left, I'll open one up and give it a listen. And I'd listened to a couple online, but it didn't do it justice on its own. On a turntable, this thing is absolutely phenomenal. And it's just a very, I don't know how I can say this, a relaxing performance of sorts, even though it's got a lot of energy.
Yeah.
It's something that comes through in Strings performances that I really do enjoy. But Live Volume 1, most of his stuff, when it comes out initially, and there's that colored vinyl press, that goes quickly and it does not come back. So some of that stuff tends to be fairly collectible.
I'm really surprised you went that long before you did a quality control on that one. I figured.
Well, part of that was I was trying to gauge the demand on this, and I don't want to open one up and then have somebody come in. Oh, do you got the Billy Strings? And I said, well, I opened one, so here's a couple bucks off. Mm-hmm. I waited until I felt that had settled down enough after the initial release, which has been a week plus. Yeah. So that went through there. Now the other pickup this week.
Oh boy.
There we go. I got another They Might Be Giants album. This is called Idlewild. It's
Get
a
out.
compilation. This is a compilation album on gold nugget vinyl. Let's see if I can zoom this in here on gold nugget vinyl from They Might Be Giants. And this is, it's a very cool looking one. And most of their very cool looking vinyl, most of their stuff, you know, they've got their regular albums. And what this is a compilation album of their recordings during their time with Idlewild Records. And they put out several albums on through there. And what's cool about this is actually got They Might Be Giant songs that some people might recognize.
Okay.
I mean, it's a very cool. I mean, I'm kidding, but Mesopotamian's on here. Experimental Film. Tesla is on here. A personal favorite, another one called You're on Fire. Very cool music video on that one. Careful what you pack. And an electronic version of Istanbul, not Constantinople, which is quite different. What's actually kind of cool too is that They Might Be Giants was kind enough to put an insert in that will help me with this quest to become a completist. So,
just what you needed. I'm sure Kim
I'm
was
actually
super excited.
I'm very close, and I'm going to do this. It's going to be 3 weeks in a row, but I think I've got one more from them coming next week. So
Completist.
We're going to we'll have to do a complete episode on that. So those are the pickups. And for those of you who would like to hear what we're talking about, be sure you look for the Spotify playlist that accompanies this episode. I do my best, and we try to find sound clips or full songs and make a playlist of the music we're talking about. So if you're curious what some of this stuff sounds like that Steve is listening to, or you want to dig into a live strings, look for that playlist. It'll be in the description below for both the Spotify podcast and on our YouTube channel, as well as we put the link directly up to the playlist on our Facebook page. Just search for Two Guys Talking About Records. Do you go through those playlists?
Good. Those playlists are excellent. They really are great.
I did some traveling last week on my weekend, my Monday, Tuesday, and I clicked on the playlist I put the playlist together, but I've got so much other stuff going on. I don't really listen to all of your stuff all the way through, but that gives me a chance to. But yeah, they're very cool when I can find them. Not all of your stuff I can find, not all my stuff I can find.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to find all the stuff this week that we're talking about either. Which brings us to our subject at hand. As collectors, and Steve and I have talked in previous episodes about, you know, why we collect or how we collect, whether it be a completist or whether you go for a certain artist or whether you go for a certain type of genre. And one of the things that kind of struck us as looking at our collections, which are obviously ever growing, is there a way to narrow down your collection? I think if you step back, and especially using an application like Discogs or a platform like Discogs, there are so many different ways that you can reorganize your collection, different ways that you can look at your collection. You can put them in folders. You can reorganize by dates added or by genre, whatever the case. So Discogs allows you to do that. And once you start breaking that down, you start to notice some interesting things in that little burrow down, don't you?
Yeah, you do. Patterns erupt.
Subgenres, if you will, niche collections.
Yep.
You know, okay, for you say you're not really a niche collector.
No, I think I can't focus enough. That must be it. You know, I was like, you know, oh, look at that over there. Oh, there's something different over here. And it's always kind of something new, something different. Unless that's a niche, I don't know. But
that could be. But yeah, that really did get me thinking though, Steve. When you mentioned this, I'm like, okay, well, there has for several episodes. I mean, lots and lots of episodes. I often refer to the Michigan collection that I've got going, both personally and here in the store. I've got a fairly significant Michigan collection going on here at the store, but throughout that, and let's toss out the whole completist side of things for this discussion, because you know you're a completist with a few things. I think we're both heavy into Floyd. You like the Velvet Underground and all things there. But if we dismiss the idea of being a completist on an artist, what kind of these patterns are emerging that you were talking about?
Yeah.
And for me, I think I'll start simple because I don't have a lot pulled. We're gonna be talking about Michigan, and I'm gonna shove this down everybody's throats this week. But one of the things that I tend to gravitate toward because of my history in radio is promotional items, promotional pressings. I think that this is a deep enough topic that we probably, and we'll talk afterwards, but we probably should do a promotional an episode on promotional records, the differences between stamps and pressings and labels and the like. But I've got a few just offhand here that can be considered promotional, but may not be. And this is where we'll delve deeper into. So this Blind Faith, this, of course, the U.S. cover, not the questionable one. But what's tricky here is, and it's very difficult to see, up in the upper left, the spine side of this, there is a small metal rivet in that. And it took me, I've seen a few of these in my time here, but that actually denotes a promotional copy in some way, shape, or form, a small rivet punched through the corner there. And I've only ever seen about 3 or 4 of these in the past 10 years. And I kept this one, but that's an interesting aspect. It's not a promotional pressing, but could be considered a promotional item because it was pressed as such. And then the other big promotional ones, I know I've talked about this before, and this is that Rolling Stones special radio promotional album. Yeah. And this is just a sampler from the era of the early 70s. It's got a lot of stuff in here, Route 66. I mean, going back to some of their older stuff as well. Presented for radio stations only by the Rolling Stones. And it was felt most stations have in their library both volumes of the Rolling Stones hits. And that one more LP assembled especially for radio stations could be of great help in programming. So this LP, consisting of 14 Rolling Stones selections, spans the complete recorded history of the Stones, beginning with one of their earliest recordings, Route 66, and ending with a brand new selection, which will be included on the next LP, Love in Vain. So this is one of the coolest ones in my collection. It's also one of the most valuable in the collection as well. But it is truly just a radio promotion. Then the only other one, I've got a lot of white label promos, again, too much to dig into, but radio only ones. This is another fun one for me. And this is actually the cassette liner that was sent to me. It's from when I was actually working in radio. This is Dred Zeppelin's Unleaded. And this is a special radio for college radio only. I'll even niche down to that. Promotional LP for college radio only. And that's shown on the label and shown just in the jacket that they put on there. And Dred Zeppelin, for those of you who aren't familiar, is a reggae-influenced Led Zeppelin cover band fronted by an overweight Elvis impersonator. So, and I've had that in my collection since I worked in radio in the 80s, and that was sent to me. They sent us a regular copy for the station, and they said, "Oh, here, have this one too." So,
yeah,
thank you very much.
You brought up a couple, like white label promos. A lot of people do collect those, and they go to record shows. It's their focus. Or the gold stamp promos, again, extremely popular niche that people really dig into. I think it's because it's easier, probably to find some of that. There's more material out there. Now, what you have is a lot harder to find, like that Rolling Stones. That really becomes a much more unique niche that you have going on.
You're burrowing down. And again, if we do a episode further down on promotional albums, we can talk further about this. But white label promos, especially, they could be a little easier to find, but finding them in nice shape is tremendously difficult. I've got a white label promo Led Zeppelin 2, for example, that has been through the ringer because it's been in a radio station and handled. It's written on. Same thing. I've got a white label promo of Derek and the Dominoes, Layla. Extremely valuable albums, except for the fact that they are just beaten to hell.
Yeah. Now that Half Nelson that I recently purchased from you, I don't think I did. Did I show that last week? Maybe not. But that,
I think you did. Yeah.
Okay. That one was a white label promo, but in very good condition. I mean, just super clean.
Yeah. Once in a while you can find them, but that's a great little side project to get into. And I know lots of other collectors that do that.
Yeah.
One of the other things, and one of our customers, for a couple of our different customers, for example, one of them, she is only looking for Led Zeppelin records that were pressed at the Monarch plant that have that MO, and you can identify through the runouts, but an MO on the label. That's just her little thing. She wants to collect only Led Zeppelins. With respect to Zeppelin, there are folks that look for and actively collect, and very collectible and valuable, the RL, the Robert Ludwig pressings.
Yes.
Not just of Zeppelin, but of many, many other things too. So
yeah,
I do have a couple of, RL. I've got a couple of Ludwig Zeppelins, but that's not something I actively seek out.
Yeah, I've seen that and heard other people talk about they have a certain person that they love the way they master their records. And so they focus everything on I want to only buy albums if this certain person mastered them or a producer. There's certain
Yeah.
producers again that people will just say, that's my producer. Doesn't matter what the album is, whether you like it or not, that person did it, which is really makes that niche collector that's what it's about. It's not so much I'm only buying it because I like it. No, I just want it because this guy does it right, good, bad, or ugly. I want to have it.
And that really leads down, we talk rabbit holes, that leads down one too, because you would be picking up stuff that normally is not in your wheelhouse, but you're getting it because our friend Abby, for example, you remember Abby, she is on a quest to collect the Rolling Stone top 500 albums of all time and have those in her collection, based on just that Rolling Stone. I don't know if that's going to be completely possible because some of them may not be on vinyl.
Yeah.
And some of them are extremely, extremely rare. But I mean, that's kind of a goal. And a lot of us as collectors work toward these goals. I'm going to find every single R.L. Zeppelin I can find. I'm going to find every white label promo. I'm going to collect every variation of the Police Synchronicity that there is out there.
If only I was still there to sit with Abby and talk about, I had that quest at one time in my life too. I had that book and I'm going to get all of these. Well, it doesn't matter now anyway, but eventually like, Captain Beefheart, huh?
Yeah. Like, okay, what were they smoking? Never mind. I know what they were smoking at Rolling Stones.
There was a variety of them. And go, oh, really? Great.
Now, you said at the top of the episode that you don't consider yourself to be a niche collector of that sort, but you do seek out a genre.
I do, and yeah, and the one that I focus on Zamrock, and which is very obscure. Let's just say there's not a lot. Some people will buy one or two. I got into it deeper. I don't need every Zamrock album in the world, but I mean, if I see it, I'm probably going to buy it and find out. And just a few examples here, and it can kind of go into just African music as a whole. So these are original pressings, and they will empty a bank account very quickly. And if it's an African record, they're generally never in good shape. I mean, they're just fairly beat because they weren't putting them in sleeves in Africa. I'll just right now tell you, I'm pretty sure they were left on the turntable. They're used for other things. I mean, the market, when the markets all blew up there, no one could buy records anymore. You just use what you have. But Ricky Laganga, this is like my favorite, but I mean, it's way up in the triple digits. It's not, cheap to get. You have something like Day of Judgment from the Ngozi family. This is just an absolute, for Zamrock, this is a classic. These can be found on reissues now, so you can get them a lot cheaper. I do have the reissues because I want to listen to them without sounding like, the Sahara deserts, spinning around on there. Yeah. And, I even brought in, had Jim, these were well cleaned by Dylan at Noble Records. But I brought it in. Hey, Jim, can we do one more on them? And there's not much you can do.
Ran them through the spin clean and the VPI.
Yeah. Yep. Love and Freedom from Keith Mehufu. Again, just great Zamrock, fantastic guitar work going on, very interesting stuff. We have here's Keith again, but these albums are just, you could see it's ripped, and you're still going to pay triple digits for this because they're so rare to get and hard to find. But a lot of collectors, they just they're not going to buy it. It's not their thing. But there is, you got reissues that come out on this stuff. And, here, like the Apostles came out, kind of more funk and soul out of Nigeria. We have, this is a cool Zamrock, Apples. And again, it's just, 70s. Zamrock is really about the 70s rock, and then everything went dance. You could say, but that's probably more of a completist with Thala. I have a lot of, but I'm not going to be a completist because I don't need it all because it's just way too much.
And you got a big box set from Fela Kuti also.
Yeah, like 3 of them. So I'm missing 2 of them. But there's another one. It's like, I don't know if I need it or not. But another niche there is the desert blues. Here's 2 groups, Tanarin and Madhu Makhtar, and I have some other artists. And the desert blues this is newer. The music coming out of Africa, extreme guitar oriented, very hypnotic. They lots of percussion that builds a rhythm, and I mean it truly can put you. It's like a trance going on. But then these guitars are phenomenal, and I do buy a lot when I hear it's desert blues. So you could say that's another niche that I will jump into. I don't need everything though, but Zamrock, if it's a group, I probably will pick that up. That is one that I would like to have as much as can. Luckily, there isn't like tons of it. A couple years ago, they were reissuing it big time. It kind of came out, but that kind of came and went. So now it's not so much anymore. And it might have just been because the market wasn't enough. The problem with stuff like that, Jim, is when it comes time that eventually you want to get rid of it, you pay a lot for it. Not easy to get rid of.
Well, and that's another thing too, is that I think you are one of a very few collectors in the United States, and so much so that you're recognized as a collector of Zamrock, even physically when you're in a store. Say, hey, you're the Zamrock guy.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Well,
but
I like to think that
you really get into some different things. I mean, and folks, the reason this episode came up because I was just thinking of Jim's collection. Okay, I'm thinking he goes into these. You're a good rabbit hole guy, man. You get into it like, really? You're buying that? Wow. It's like, oh my God. But go, Jim.
I question that a lot of times too, Steve, but I get it because, and what makes it tough, again, here at the record store, I've got a large Michigan collection, and it's difficult because I have to, this existential crisis, whenever something comes in that goes in the Michigan collection, I'm like, okay, should I put that on the shelf or should that go into mine? It's almost, I feel at times like I'm curating something, like a museum artifact. But like the Zamrock down the line, exactly what good is that going to be if it's such a niche collection of Michigan music? Granted, I think maybe the audience is a little bit bigger than a Zamrock collection, but you never know. The other thing that I got thinking once I started getting into some of this Michigan stuff, and I'm going to plead ignorance on this, and I will ask our viewers out there, please let me know if this is the case, but I'm hard pressed to think of any other, well, here in the US at least, any other region, state especially, that has such an eclectic collection of Michigan stuff, like dedicated. I'm sure New York, Chicago, LA, they've got compilations, they've got groups and things that come together on that. But if they do, I'm not really that aware of them. Not so much as I am of Michigan, but maybe that's just because I'm always on the lookout for Michigan stuff.
It could be, but you do look at, between the Motown, then splits into the hard funk that was coming out, punk rock, obviously hard rock, electronic. Detroit had just an incredible techno scene going on. One of the
They still do, actually. Yeah, they still do.
Yeah. It's so, I mean, there is a lot that really came out, especially out of the Motor City, but as it went further north, Flint. So yeah, there's a lot to be said.
Hang on, Steve. But my Michigan collection personally, and I'll just kind of delve into just that, and I'll leave the stuff on the shelf here. It can be summed up. I mean, this is an album called "I Sing of Michigan." And this is what really begins to populate a lot of my collection. It's just these oddities that show up. Okay, that's very Michigan related. This is a collection of elementary school students singing under the words and print learned by someone named Lorna D. Mistel from Orchard Lake, Michigan, piano accompaniment. These are songs written about Michigan from this woman who created the album and sung by school children. And we're talking songs like Proud Michigan, Red Wings, Lions, and Tigers, I Like Where I Live, The Plea of the Michigan Trout, Daddy Teach Me to Ski, Great Men Came from Michigan, Tulips Are Blooming. Is this a great listener? No, but it's something unique, to the state. I am Michigan born and raised. I've been here all my life, all 59 plus years of it. And I think that's stuff like that is cool. Will I ever listen to it? Probably not. But I do have actually one of those on the shelf too. The other thing that I've always found intriguing about collecting Michigan music is there are some that are just off the scale crazy when it comes to collectability, especially with Discogs looking at some of the prices of some of this stuff. Let me call this up first. This is an album by a pair called Rob Carr and Bill Call. Communication One is the name of this. Let me make sure I've got that on here. And Discogs calls this stuff folk, world, and country. And it is, but it isn't. It's an odd listen. And it is kind of that psych rock. This is from 1971, by the way. Discogs pulls this in close to the triple digits, but still a rarity, but nothing tremendous on that. But then I get this one that I found a while ago that really begins to kind of throw the lid off of the collectability and just the oddity of Michigan music. This is by an artist, and I saved the inner sleeve, even though it's destroyed, but it's a Queen City pressing plant inner sleeve, so we saved that. This is an album by an artist. Let me zoom in one more time here. Called John Drendall and B.A. Thrower and Friends, and the album is called Papa Never Let Me. This is from 1974. Discogs calls this blues rock, psych rock, and it is. It's got that Michigan flavor of that heavy psych and the like. These guys I couldn't find any other information on where they're from other than Michigan, but I believe it is the Detroit area. I'd have to kind of go back and dig up my research. But this one, Discogs pumps this thing into the mid triple digits. We're talking fairly nice $500 to $700 range for just this weird psych rock. And then the big dog in my Michigan collection, I know we've told this story a few times before, is the MacArthur album.
Yeah.
And you remember when I picked this up from our friend Mike down at Electric Crown. We did some horse trading on this one. MacArthur, yeah, he did. MacArthur from the Saginaw area, Ben MacArthur. And this one is from, let me look at this one, 1979. Then there's a MacArthur 2 from the 80s. We'll show that in a second. But 79, and this one on Discogs, it's prog rock, psych rock, acid rock. And I'll agree to that. To me, this has got some you're at that leading edge of that 80s sound, but it's still got the Detroit, Michigan sound of that psych rock in there. But this is a true first pressing. I mean, the generic label, the name sticker on the front, and the insert, which is now taped to the back of this one with the liner notes and the credits. But this one, Discogs, you get into the 4-digit range with this one. And it's sought after. That's been reissued, and I've had a reissue of that for a while. The MacArthur 2, their follow-up from 1980. Oh, heck here, 1982. Much of the same, nowhere near as valuable as the first one, but still, first pressing. Did you get one of these from me also?
I did, yes.
I think I remember that. I had a batch of those, not as big as what Mike saw down there, but still, we had 2 or 3 of them over the time here at the store. But then you get into just some other, if we start talking Michigan rock, you've got the Stooges, you've got MC5, you've got Alice Cooper. And I do have a lot of those in my collection, but I try to say I'm going to steer toward the more unique things. And you do. Yeah, not as popular. You got the Frost from Dick Wagner. He passed away a few years ago, but just some great rock. Another one of his side projects, this is called Ursa Major, and that is Dick Wagner, also from the Saginaw area. I mentioned MC5. And Alice Cooper. Here's a couple of interesting ones. Now, these are both bootlegs, and this is the MC5 performing in 1970 at the Saginaw County Fairgrounds. So they actually made a bootleg of that. Saginaw's not too far from our store here in Midland, as well as a bootleg of Alice Cooper, Slicker Than a Weasel. This is a bootleg that's billed as a radio concert, but this is another one locally recorded. It's from the Wendler Arena in Saginaw, recorded in 1978, so a little bit later, but still, kind of some cool stuff on the bootleg side of things with Cooper. Okay, I'm going to go down the rabbit hole further here, Steve. So when we talk about, no, just a couple more here. Even I've got some classical 1812 overture performed by the Detroit Symphony Orchestra,
Mhm.
and Handel's Messiah as performed by the University of Michigan Choral Union and Symphony Orchestra from U of M. So, I mean, I think those are very cool variations on there. But when I said earlier at the top, when I was going down this rabbit hole, I found another rabbit hole in my collection.
Yeah.
I wasn't kidding. Deep within this collection of Michigan stuff, I discovered that I have a proclivity to collect Michigan compilations of
Yeah.
artists. And the biggie of this, and this is the one folks see a lot of, and that is this Michigan Rocks collection. This is what got me thinking too. Okay, this has been out there. Is there an Illinois Rocks? Is there a Nebraska Rocks? Is there a Florida Rocks album out there from the 70s? Is there? Well, there might be. I don't know. So for collectors of this, you've got the likes of the MC5, the Stooges, the Bob Seger system, Mitch Ryder, Detroit Frost, as we mentioned, Nugent, of course, Mitch Ryder, Third Power. I didn't even get into the Third Power stuff I've got in there as well. SRC and the Rationals, all big names from that early era of Michigan acid rock. But here's the cool thing on this, Steve. And for collectors that have a Michigan Rocks or are looking for this, there are actually 3 versions of Michigan Rocks if you're going to be a collector of this to go through. And it took me a while to kind of figure out on exactly why that is and how. So much so that a few years back, I actually looked up the producer of this album, got a hold of him. He was running a multimedia photography business down in Detroit. And I called him and said, okay, so what's the deal with these different versions? And it turns out that the original version of this had a Bob Seger song, and I'm trying to think which one it was, Ramblin' Gamblin' Man included. And there was a little bit of a tiff with Seger's management. And we can get into further too about how I think the guy that produced this referred to Bob Seger's manager as he used a choice word to describe him. But there was basically a licensing disagreement with the use of Ramblin' Gamblin' Man on the Michigan Rocks compilation. So they hurriedly replaced it with a version with Bob Seger's Heavy Music, which had some different licensing. But then this third one kicks in there, and there's actually a mispress version of this that lists Heavy Music on the label and on the jacket, but it's actually still Ramblin' Gamblin' Man. So if you're going to collect, and here's that subgenre, if you're going to collect the Michigan Rocks, you need all 3, right?
Yeah, you bet. I have one, but I'm pretty satisfied. But that's cool.
Let's see if it's Heavy Music. Then, not to be outdone, there's a Michigan Rocks 2 that came out in 1982. Teagarden and Van Winkle, Brownsville Station, Grand Funk, Frigid Pink, the Woolies, Sunday Funnies, some other stuff on there. And to my knowledge, I think that kind of wrapped up with that. But as I talked about the sub collection of various artists compilations, you get into things like Nuggets, which is it's a valuable record in the $150 range, a double LP that pictures Iggy on the front there. But I've even got ones called Michigan Mixture and Michigan Mixture Volume 2. And these are just some really unknown garage bands from Detroit. I've heard of a couple of them, but there's just some wild stuff in here of that garage rock era of Detroit. So that was that kind of subgenre. Okay, I collect Michigan stuff, but apparently I also collect Michigan compilations.
It just keeps going and going.
It does. Would you like to see my regional collections of Michigan?
I guess you could say like Analog Africa. It's a compilation, and I do collect. I have almost all the Analog Africa albums. There's only a few I don't, and pretty pricey.
Well, the regional stuff, those of you may not know, but I lived for quite some time up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, went to school at Northern Michigan University and settled there for some time before moving down to the Midland, Michigan area. But I've, over my time, found, and I've had this one in my collection. This is the Pride of the North, the Northern Michigan University Wildcat Marching Band, playing some of their music. Little known fact, Steve, I was in the Northern Michigan University Wildcat Marching Band for a short time, playing my drums until I broke a finger and went into radio.
Oh, look at that. It ruined your music career. Got washed out by a broken finger.
That's all right. This is an album called Lucky Strikes and Liquid Gold by an Upper Peninsula artist named Jeff Cowell. Now, this is a reissue, but this is also a grail album for a lot of people because the original was self-pressed, and there are very, very few of those out there. I think our friend Jordan over at Electric Quiche has got one. Electric Quiche has got an original, but I've had a copy of the reissue copy of this. Not very valuable, but it's just kind of very earthy, folksy music. I'd call it like a Uper Dylan.
Okay.
Okay, down to the Midland area, where I call home now. And I've even been able to find very Midland specific records over the years. There's a bluegrass album called the Bluegrass from the North by the Pine River Valley Boys. And it's bluegrass. Not my favorite stuff, but it's bluegrass, and they're from Midland. This one here is Dave Brubeck, and I would like to do a little extended episode on this at some point, Steve. Not Brubeck himself, but this particular album. This is Truth, which Dave Brubeck premiered this album called Truth at the Midland Center for the Arts. And I forget the exact date on this. 1971, I believe, was this. And this is just a tremendously interesting album that deserves its own deep dive. But it's just kind of bizarre. Right down to, and we talked about the artist Michigander a couple of weeks ago. I picked one of his up. He actually has an album called Midland. Jason Singer, the artist known as Michigander, is actually from Midland, and he put this out a little while ago too. So I do get, city specific in some cases as well.
Yep, that's a niche.
Looking at our time, I've got you said we were going to unload on here. How about, and I think you can talk about this, is not going to be a niche for you, but I actually have a collection of albums in my Michigan collection from people I know. And I met. Now, this one is from Wally Pleasant. Wally was around. He was a college radio artist in the 80s and still going strong today. This is called Happy Hour from, a few years ago, probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I've never met Wally in person, but I have talked with him, and I actually used some of his music in a short film I did when I was doing that stuff 10 years ago. But very eclectic, nifty little college radio artist. Michael Christensen as well, our good friend Michael. I've got a couple of albums of his, as I know you do too. And this music spans all sorts of genres. But it's great, I think, to say that, these are folks that we know and we're enjoying their music and helping spread the word on their stuff. But you've talked at length about Michael and his music and what you enjoy about that.
And, I do have a number of albums from people through the VC that I communicate with and have. So I guess I might be in that group. Some I've not met in person, a lot of them, but I constantly communicate with them.
Just a couple more in that vein. This is one from an artist named Andrew Dalton, or Andy Dalton. I've known him for several years as well, a musician here in the Tri-City area. And he put out it's a triple LP opus called Fireside Wake, which just itself over triple LP spans a lot of different genres of music. But Andy spent probably about 10 or more years of his life putting this together, culminating in its release last year or 2 years ago now. To Brett Mitchell, someone who I've known for a long time as well. He's played here at our store several times, and he's got an album called For the Most Part. Just some great stuff of his original music that he put out. And in this one, and I think you mentioned liner notes before as well. This is, I call these guys the original rock band from Frankenmuth, not that Greta Van Fleet stuff, but this is an album from an artist called Brody and the Bushroad Trio. And I knew these guys. One of the members of this was a former student of mine, and they put out this album. It's very kind of almost Pearl Jam-ish, excuse me, in spots. But it's actually a very cool album. Came out in 2014. And what's notable on this, I'll brag a little bit. When you get into the liner notes here, Radio Wasteland is actually mentioned prior to us being a record store. And I mentioned in here as well in the thank yous to Jim Gleason. That's Radio Wasteland at the time was the radio show I was doing.
Sure. And
we helped promote these guys in that album. So it's just, it's kind of a nifty little thing to say. I mentioned on a record, but it's also some great music from those guys. But sadly, with a lot of those, they come and go. They press an album. They may still work. Andy still works as a musician. Brett still works as a musician. The guys from Brody and the Bushroad Trio, no longer a band, but individually they still play around or with different groups. Still kind of fun stuff, though.
Yeah. I was reading, there was a person that collects retail music from the 50s and 60s and even into the 70s, because retails, like a Kmart, you had a turntable.
Yeah, oh
And
yeah.
it was behind the checkouts, and the checkers had to go switch the albums and flip them over, or you'd be out there working, suddenly da 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 da. Oh god, skip! Someone needs to go up front and hit it. But people collect those records, and they're not easy to find, because believe me, when we were done with them after listening to that for a month because it had commercials on there, those things got busted. I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I don't want to see it again. And away they went. And but it's a type of collection. I read one person that they only collect live music from Boston, from the city of Boston.
Of the
And they
city of.
want, yeah, from the city of Boston, but it's only the albums that were recorded live there.
Hmm.
Kind of, similar. You have these live from, Michigan, in different
Yep.
places. But yeah, specific city it had to be. And you can even get into genres. This was an interesting genre. Witch house. And someone was talking about they collect witch house, and witch house is electronic music with with occult themes.
Okay, wow.
That's all they collect. Now, I don't know how much is out there. I don't know if you have to go to Norway to find all that stuff. I don't know. But look at my witch house collection. Oh, neat.
That is how deep you can go.
Let's burn some candles when you play those. See what I got my Ouija board. Let's go, baby.
Just don't spin them backwards.
Yeah, but it is, but I get it's someone. This is what they like. That's their passion. Maybe most people may not have that, but they want everything they can find dealing with that, and so it makes their collection interesting, at least to
Yeah,
them.
and it really kind of alludes to the root of collecting and why we collect. We collect, and we've talked about this many times before. We collect with things that make us feel good, and
Yeah,
in some cases, my connections to the UP, my connections to this area as well. Seeing stuff that's produced and saying that I can call that as a part of my collection is something that makes me. This is kind of cool. Will
yeah,
I listen to much of those a lot? No. Will
yeah.
I? Will I ever listen to Fat Bob the Singing Plumber?
Maybe not as
Probably,
much.
probably not. Detroit and Ann Arbor, but it's still
Yeah,
kind of cool to have.
yeah. There was a person, they only buy Peter and the Wolf albums, but they want them with all the different people that have narrated them, like Sir Alec Guinness,
Oh
David
yeah,
Bowie, and so their whole collection is this specific album, but they look out for all the people, the different ones that have done it. I guess they
interesting.
really know that story well by now.
They would almost have to. Peter Ustinov, I think. Maybe I'm trying to remember some of the names I've seen attached to that as
Yeah,
well.
you've seen those come through.
Oh yeah.
It is. There's a lot of them, and they're out there. And yep, that's what I'm going to collect. All right. Hey, it makes them happy.
Well, very curious to know from you, dear viewers, do you have a rabbit hole type of collection, a niche that you like to dig into that you think is very unique in a way? I mean, please let us know. And my other question earlier too is very sincere. I'm kind of got the blinders on with Michigan music. Is there another city, another state or region where there's this type of numerous albums dedicated to either various artists or individuals coming from there? I'm very curious to see. I mean, I didn't even get into some of the Detroit stuff, and I've got a whole lot of Detroit centric stuff as well. Another dozen or so. I went back, Steve, and looked at this, and my Michigan collection personally right now, sits at about 150 records. And those are just the ones that I've identified specifically. I know there's probably there's a few more in there that are not tagged in that Michigan folder that I've got set up on
Yeah.
Discogs. But very curious to know what you folks think. Do you have some favorites, a favorite rabbit hole that you've dove into and you're like, well, can't back out now. It's kind of like Steve with Zamrock. Well, might as well keep going. I'm
Yep.
the Zamrock guy, right?
Yep. I mean, I should probably get a T-shirt. I'm the Zamrock guy.
Yes, I'm the Zamrock guy you've heard about. Well, as always, it has been a pleasure speaking with you, Steve, and thanks for making me think a little bit deeper about this collection. I'm simply amazed. I mean, I've always talked about the Michigan collection, but until you step off and you look at it, you're like, wow, I guess maybe I do have just a little bit of a fixation.
I just got worried when the high school band albums began coming out, and you said it's in my collection, and I'm just going, oh boy.
Oh, don't even get me started. Those are sitting on the shelf over here. I mean, Midland high school bands, Bay City, I've had all of those come through. I've never kept them, mind you, but they're here. They don't sell, but they're here. So theoretically, I could say they're my collection.
There we go. Yes.
It's just that there's a price tag on them. If you need one, come see me. All right, folks. That will do it for this week's episode of Two Guys Talking About Records. I'm going to do my best to find some of the music and get these in a playlist. I'm not sure if I can find a Fat Bob, but we'll try to get that in there. I didn't even get to show this off. This is one of my favorites, Steve. Holy cow. My Meet the Bruiser band from WRIF, baby, a radio station I used to listen to. This is always a fun one, but we'll talk about that down the line at some point. All right.
All right. Well, I look forward for that playlist with some trepidation, but yeah, let's see what happens.
See what we can do. It'll be in the description. All right, folks, that has been a fun discussion as always. We thank you for listening and or watching Two Guys Talking About Records. Until next time, I'm Jim. I'm a record store owner, but I think I've got a collection. Now I got to put all this stuff away, Steve.
And I'm Steve, the Zamrock guy.
There you go. You folks have a great week, and you too, Steve. Thanks.
You too, Jim. Bye.